The morning rush at Madison Avenue Coffee House was brutal. Vivian Hale stood frozen at the counter, her hands trembling as she tried for the third time to sign her order to the impatient barista. The young man behind the register rolled his eyes, tapped his watch, and called out over her head, "Next customer, please." The crowd's pitying stares burned into her skin. 28 years old, wearing a designer coat that cost more than most people's monthly rent. And she couldn't even order a simple coffee. Daniel Carter shifted his 7-year-old daughter Lily to his other hip and stepped forward. His work boots were scuffed, his jacket worn at the elbows, but his hands moved with practiced grace as he signed to Vivian. "I can help you order. What would you like?" Her eyes widened in shock, then filled with tears as she signed back her order. Daniel turned to the barista, his voice calm but firm. "The lady wants a vanilla latte with oat milk, extra hot." Vivian fumbled in her purse, pulling out a business card to thank him. Daniel glanced down at it, and his blood turned to ice. The Hale Dynamics logo stared back at him, the same company that had destroyed his career 3 years ago. Daniel Carter had once been one of the most promising structural engineers in New York City. At 31, he'd led the design team for the revolutionary Skybridge project, a pedestrian walkway system that would have transformed Manhattan's congested streets. For 2 years, he poured his soul into those blueprints, working 18-hour days while his wife Sarah battled cancer. He'd believed Arthur Hale's promises that this project would secure his family's future. Sarah had died 2 weeks before the project's completion, leaving him with Lily and a mountain of medical debt he couldn't pay because Hale Dynamics had just terminated the contract. The official reason was structural concerns, but Daniel knew the truth. Arthur Hale had found a cheaper firm willing to steal Daniel's designs and implement them for half the cost. When Daniel tried to fight it, Hale's lawyers buried him in legal threats. No engineering firm would touch him after that. The man who'd once designed skyscrapers now installed kitchen cabinets for a living. His MIT diploma gathering dust in a storage unit he could barely afford. Every morning, Daniel woke at 5 to pack Lily's lunch, braid her hair the way Sarah used to, and catch the subway from Queens to whatever construction site needed an extra pair of hands. He'd learned sign language during Sarah's final months, when the tubes and machines made speaking impossible. It was their secret language of love, now shared with Lily, who signed "I love you" every night before bed. The apartment they lived in was small, 2 bedrooms with windows that faced a brick wall, but he'd made it home. Lily's drawings covered the refrigerator, her toys scattered across floors he cleaned every night. Her laughter filling spaces that money could never buy. His hands bore the scars of manual labor, now cuts from sheet metal, calluses from hammers, burns from welding torches. These same hands had once drafted blueprints that would have changed the city's skyline, but when Lily grabbed those scarred fingers each morning for their walk to school, Daniel remembered what really mattered. He'd lost his career, his reputation, his savings. But he hadn't lost his ability to love, to provide, to protect. Vivian Hale lived in a penthouse that touched the clouds, but she'd never felt more trapped. Born deaf into a world that demanded perfection, she'd become her father's greatest disappointment the day doctors confirmed her condition. Arthur Hale could buy senators and bankrupt competitors, but he couldn't buy his daughter hearing. Instead of learning to communicate with her, he'd hired an army of interpreters, therapists, and tutors to fix what he saw as broken. Her childhood was a parade of specialists and private schools where she was the only deaf student. Her mother had left when Vivian was 3, unable to handle Arthur's obsessive need to cure their daughter. Since then, Vivian had lived in a golden cage, every aspect of her life controlled and monitored. She had a trust fund worth millions, but couldn't buy genuine human connection. She'd graduated from Columbia with honors in art history, but her father considered it a hobby, not an achievement. At 28, she'd never had a real job, a real friend, or a real relationship. Men either wanted her money or couldn't handle her deafness. She spent her days in museums, studying the silent conversations between brushstrokes, the only language that never required translation. Her penthouse had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, but she felt like she was watching life through glass, always observing, never participating. The walls were covered with priceless art, but she'd trade them all for one genuine conversation, one moment of being understood without an interpreter standing between her and the world. That morning at the coffee shop had been her rebellion trying to do something normal people did every day. She'd failed spectacularly until a stranger with kind eyes and gentle hands had understood her without judgment. She'd watched him with his daughter, the easy flow of their communication, the love that needed no words, and felt a hollow ache in her chest. This was what she'd been missing, not hearing, but connection. Vivian Hale lived in a penthouse that touched the clouds, but she'd never felt more trapped. Born deaf into a world that demanded perfection, she'd become her father's greatest disappointment the day doctors confirmed her condition. Arthur Hale could buy senators and bankrupt competitors, but he couldn't buy his daughter hearing. Instead of learning to communicate with her, he'd hired an army of interpreters, therapists, and tutors to fix what he saw as broken. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. The woman who had everything had never felt more alone. The man who'd lost everything had never felt richer than when Lily laughed. They were two souls speaking different languages of pain, about to discover that sometimes the most profound connections happen in silence. Daniel's world was built on struggle and love. Vivian's on privilege and loneliness. Yet in that brief moment, at the coffee counter, they'd understood each other perfectly. Daniel stood awkwardly by their table, his jaw clenched as he watched his daughter chat animatedly with the enemy's daughter. But Vivian wasn't her father. He could see that in the way she knelt to Lily's level, in how she listened with her whole body, in the loneliness that mirrored his own. When she signed, "Thank you for helping me" the other day, her eyes held no recognition of what the name Carter might mean to her father's empire. There was only gratitude, pure and honest, the kind that couldn't be faked. "Lily, we need to go," Daniel signed. But his daughter had already pulled Vivian to their table, insisting she see her drawings. The sketches were of their small apartment, their cat Mr. Seven, Whiskers, and a new one, Vivian, at the coffee counter with Daniel helping her. "I drew you both," Lily announced proudly, her hands moving with the enthusiasm only children possessed. Vivian studied the drawing with the attention she usually reserved for Renaissance masterpieces. Every line, every color choice, seemed to matter to her. She signed to Lily, "You're a wonderful artist. The emotions are so clear." Then to Daniel, hesitantly, "Your daughter is special. You've raised her well." Daniel wanted to hate her. He wanted to see Arthur Hale's arrogance in her eyes, but all he found was genuine warmth. "She's all I have." He found himself signing back before he could stop himself. The admission hung between them, raw and honest, more than he'd shared with anyone since Sarah's death. "I understand," Vivian signed, and somehow, Daniel believed she did. She pulled out her phone, typing a message to show him. "I know this is forward, but would you and Lily like to join me for lunch? There's a place nearby that makes amazing grilled cheese." Lily mentioned it's her favorite. Daniel looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Vivian's uncertain smile. Every instinct screamed to protect himself and Lily from this family. The Hale name was poison to him, had destroyed everything he'd worked for. But Lily was already signing excitedly about showing Vivian more drawings, her joy infectious and pure. Against his better judgment, Daniel nodded. Over grilled cheese and tomato soup, walls began to crumble. Vivian was nothing like Daniel had imagined a billionaire's daughter would be. She laughed at Lily's jokes, shared stories through graceful signs, and when Lily accidentally spilled juice on Vivian's designer dress, she just laughed and helped clean up. "Accidents happen," she signed, then pretended to spill her own water, making Lily giggle. For one afternoon, Daniel forgot about Hale dynamics. He saw only a woman who understood his daughter's need to be heard in a world that often overlooked small voices. The restaurant was modest, the kind of place Daniel could afford on his construction wages. But Vivian acted like it was the Four Seasons. She savored every bite, asked Lily about school, and shared funny stories about her own childhood mishaps. When she mentioned learning to paint, Lily immediately demanded to see pictures. Vivian showed them her phone gallery, not of galas or yacht parties, but of her paintings, raw and emotional canvases that spoke of isolation and yearning. "You paint feelings," Lily signed with the wisdom children sometimes possessed. "Like when I miss Mommy." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Daniel, who nodded permission, and signed back, "Yes, exactly like that." Art helps us say things we can't find words for. As they parted ways, Vivian hesitated, then signed to Daniel, "Thank you for lunch. For letting me spend time with Lily. I know you didn't want to." Daniel's response surprised even him. "You're good with her. She doesn't open up to many people." He paused, then added, "Same time next week?" The hope that bloomed on Vivian's face was answer enough. 2 weeks had passed since the coffee shop incident. Vivian stood outside Daniel's apartment building in Queens, her driver waiting nervously in the Bentley. She'd found his address through some careful investigation, driven by a need she couldn't quite name. The building was old, the paint peeling, the elevator broken. She climbed 5 flights of stairs in her designer heels, each step taking her further from her world and deeper into his. When Daniel opened the door, his expression cycled through surprise, suspicion, and resignation. He was in worn jeans and a paint-stained t-shirt, clearly in the middle of fixing something. Behind him, she could see the small apartment cramped but clean, filled with life in a way her penthouse never was. "Please," Vivian signed, her hands shaking. I need to ask you something important. The hope that bloomed on Vivian's face was answer enough. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Daniel, who nodded permission, and signed back. Yes. Exactly like that. Art helps us say things we can't find words for. Daniel's hands clenched. You want me to teach you? Do you have any idea who I am? What your family did to me? Vivian's confusion was genuine. My family? I don't understand. Daniel stepped aside, letting her in. The contrast hit her immediately. Toys scattered the floor, dishes dried in the rack, and Lily's artwork covered every wall. The furniture was mismatched, clearly secondhand, but everything was arranged with care. It was everything Vivian's penthouse wasn't alive, warm, real. This was a home, not just a place to live. The color drained from Vivian's face. She pulled out her phone, typing frantically. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I never pay attention to my father's business. I should leave. Vivian's confusion was genuine. My family? I don't understand. Daniel's hands clenched. You want me to teach you? Do you have any idea who I am? What your family did to me? Daniel watched his daughter's joy, saw Vivian's tears, and felt his anger wavering. This woman hadn't destroyed his career. She'd probably been as much a victim of Arthur Hale as he'd been, just in different ways. Vivian signed to Lily. I should go. Your daddy and I. The apartment fell silent. Daniel knelt beside his daughter, seeing Sarah's compassion in her eyes. He looked at Vivian, really looked at her, and saw not Arthur Hale's daughter, but a woman carrying her own wounds. Her designer clothes couldn't hide the loneliness, the desperate need to belong somewhere. To matter to someone. Tuesdays and Thursdays, he said quietly. 2 hours each. We'll meet at the community center. Not here. And this is just teaching, nothing more. Vivian nodded eagerly, signing, Thank you, I'll pay whatever. No money. Daniel cut her off. I'm doing this for Lily. Because she likes you. And because everyone deserves to be understood. As Vivian left, she turned back one more time. I'll learn everything, she signed. I promise I'll work harder than any student you've ever had. Daniel watched her go, the Bentley looking absurd on his street. Lily tugged his hand. She's sad like us, Daddy. But maybe we can all be happy together. He pulled his daughter close, wondering if a 7-year-old could see something he was too damaged to recognize. The community center's fluorescent lights flickered as Daniel positioned Vivian's hands correctly for the 100th time. Feel the emotion. Don't just make the shape, he instructed, his fingers guiding hers. When you sign love, it should come from your chest, where you feel it. 6 weeks had passed since their lessons began. What started as stiff, formal sessions had evolved into something deeper. Vivian learned that Daniel's hands told stories, how they trembled slightly when signing about Sarah, how they grew animated when describing Lily's achievements, how they clenched when anything reminded him of his lost career. You're different from other teachers, Vivian signed during a break. The ones my father hired just taught vocabulary. You teach connection. Daniel watched her practice, noting how her walls had slowly crumbled. The designer clothes had given way to simple sweaters and jeans. The perfect makeup had been replaced by a natural glow that came from genuine laughter. She brought homemade cookies now, having learned to bake from YouTube videos just to see Lily smile. Last week, she'd shown up with bandaged fingers from her first attempt at making bread, proud of her imperfect loaves. Sign this. Daniel demonstrated a complex sequence. It means, I deserve to be heard. Vivian's hands moved through the phrase. But Daniel stopped her. No. Really mean it. Sign it like you believe it. She tried again, this time with conviction. I deserve to be heard. Better. Now this one. His hands moved fluidly. I am not my father's daughter. I am my own person. Vivian froze. How did you? Because I see you trying to disappear, to make yourself smaller, like you're apologizing for existing. I recognize it because I did the same thing after losing everything. But you're not responsible for your father's actions. Just like Lily isn't responsible for mine. Their eyes met and held. Vivian signed slowly. Sometimes I think you see me more clearly than I see myself. Sometimes, Daniel admitted, his defenses crumbling. I forget why I'm supposed to keep my distance from you. Vivian froze. How did you? Daniel's breath caught. Her eyes held a question, a hope, a fear that matched his own. His hand started to respond, to reach for hers, when Lily burst through the door from her kids' class, shattering the spell. Their eyes met and held. Vivian signed slowly. Sometimes I think you see me more clearly than I see myself. Vivian caught every word, responding with equal enthusiasm. Daniel watched them together, his daughter and this woman who'd somehow become essential to their lives. His heart twisted with want and fear in equal measure. How had this happened? How had Arthur Hale's daughter become the person who made his daughter laugh, who made him remember what hope felt like? Later, as they cleaned up, Vivian signed to him privately. I know what you gave up to teach me. I know who my father is, what he's capable of. But I need you to know I'm nothing like him. I never wanted his empire. I just wanted to be seen. Daniel's hands moved before he could stop them. I see you. I've seen you from the beginning. The truth of it hung between them, undeniable and terrifying. Arthur Hale's presence filled the community center's entrance like a storm cloud. His security detail flanked him as his eyes found his daughter signing animatedly with a man in work clothes and a small child. His face darkened with each passing second. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vivian. His voice cracked like a whip across the room. She froze, her hands mid-sign. We're leaving. Now. Daniel instinctively pulled Lily behind him as Arthur approached. The billionaire's eyes were ice as they surveyed Daniel's worn clothes and calloused hands. Every inch of Arthur Hale radiated power, from his $1,000 shoes to his perfectly styled silver hair. So this is where you've been hiding. Learning party tricks from some construction worker? He's teaching me to communicate, Vivian signed furiously. But Arthur wasn't watching her hands. I'm teaching her language, Daniel said steadily, though his jaw clenched. Arthur laughed, cold and dismissive. Language? She has the best therapists money can buy. She doesn't need help from someone like you. He turned to Vivian. Did he tell you who he is? He's the engineer who tried to sue my company. Failed designer, failed lawsuit, now apparently a failed teacher. Vivian's hands flew in angry signs. Daniel translated without thinking, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. She says you're wrong. She says I've taught her more in 2 months than your experts did in 20 years. Don't you dare speak for my daughter, Arthur snarled. He grabbed Vivian's arm. We're leaving. You're not to see this man again. Vivian yanked free, signing rapidly. This time, she spoke aloud, her voice unpracticed but clear. No. The word hung in the air. It was the first time she'd spoken to her father in 5 years. I choose who I spend time with, she continued, her voice growing stronger. I choose who teaches me. I choose my own life. Arthur's face went red. You're being manipulated by a man who wants our money. I don't want your money, Daniel interrupted. I never asked for anything. Your daughter asked me to teach her, and I agreed because she deserves to be understood. Something you've never tried to do. How dare you? Daddy! Why are you being mean? Lily stepped out from behind Daniel, her small voice cutting through the tension. Vivian is nice. She brings cookies and reads to me. I don't want your money, Daniel interrupted. I never asked for anything. Your daughter asked me to teach her, and I agreed because she deserves to be understood. Something you've never tried to do. He stormed out, leaving Vivian standing there, tears streaming down her face. She signed to Daniel. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Daniel wanted to comfort her. But Lily got there first, wrapping her arms around Vivian's waist. Don't cry. Daddy says mean people are just scared people wearing masks. Vivian knelt down, hugging the child tight, her body shaking with sobs. Daniel finally moved, his hand settling on her shoulder. This isn't your fault. He signed when she looked up. You didn't choose your father any more than I chose to lose my career. I choose you, she signed back, the words fierce despite her tears. Both of you, you're my family now. The weight of her words settled over them all. Even Lily seemed to understand something fundamental had shifted. 3 weeks of silence. Daniel threw himself into work, taking extra shifts to avoid thinking about Vivian. But Lily asked about her every day. Is Vivian sick? Did we do something wrong? Why doesn't she come anymore? He tried calling once, but the number was disconnected. He'd gone to the Hale building, but was turned away by security. It was better this way, he told himself. They belonged in different worlds, but late at night, when Lily was asleep, he'd find himself practicing signs in the mirror, imagining conversations with Vivian that would never happen. Meanwhile, Vivian sat in her penthouse prison, watching the city lights blur through tears. Her father had installed new locks, new security, even a new interpreter who reported her every conversation. She tried to leave, but her credit cards were frozen. Her driver instructed not to take her anywhere without approval. She found herself signing to no one, practicing the phrases Daniel had taught her. I deserve to be heard. I am my own person. I am loved. The last one was new, something she'd never dared believe until a broken man and his daughter had shown her it was possible. Her phone, the new one her father had given her, rang constantly with messages from approved contacts. Charity events, gallery openings, suitable men her father wanted her to meet. She ignored them all, spending her days painting. Her canvases filled with scenes of a small apartment. A little girl's laughter rendered in bright yellows. A man's protective stance captured in bold strokes of blue and brown. One evening, Arthur found her painting. The canvas showed the community center. Daniel teaching her to sign hope. "You're wasting your time," he said flatly. Vivian didn't turn around. She signed, knowing he couldn't understand. "You've wasted my whole life." Arthur grabbed her shoulder, spinning her to face him. "Everything I've done has been for you. To protect you. To give you opportunities despite your condition." The word hung between them like poison. Vivian pulled out her phone, typing furiously. "My condition? You mean being deaf? That's not a disease, Dad. It's just who I am. Daniel's daughter knows more sign language than you do. A 7-year-old child has shown me more acceptance than my own father." Arthur read it, his face hardening. "That man is using you." Vivian was already typing again. "He refused payment. He taught me for free. The only thing he ever accepted was cookies I baked. You talk about protection. But all you've ever done is isolate me." Daniel protected his daughter while teaching her to embrace differences. "That's real love. You don't know what love is," Arthur spat. Vivian's next message made him step back. "I know it's not controlling someone until they can't breathe. It's not being ashamed of who they are. Love is what Daniel shows Lily every day: acceptance, encouragement, pride. Love is learning someone's language instead of forcing them to speak yours." The emergency call came at midnight. Daniel jerked awake to Lily tugging his sleeve, his phone buzzing insistently. Unknown number, but something made him answer. "Mr. Carter? This is Street Mary's Hospital. You're listed as an emergency contact for Vivian Hale." His blood went cold. "What happened?" "She collapsed at home. She's stable now, but she's been asking for you. She won't communicate with anyone else." Daniel looked at Lily, already grabbing her coat. They flew through the empty streets, Daniel's mind racing. At the hospital, they found chaos. Arthur Hale stood in the hallway, yelling at doctors who couldn't understand what his daughter was trying to tell them. Vivian was in bed, signing frantically, but no one could translate. "She needs something," a nurse said desperately. "We think she's in pain." But Daniel pushed through the crowd, Lily at his side. The moment Vivian saw them, her eyes filled with tears. Her hands moved urgently. "She says she's not in physical pain," Daniel translated. "She's having panic attacks. The monitors, the sounds she can feel through vibrations. They remind her of being a child in the hospital when they tried to fix her hearing." He turned to the medical staff. "Turn off the non-essential monitors. Dim the lights. She needs calm, not chaos." As the room quieted, Daniel approached the bed. Vivian signed weakly. "You came. You called," he signed back simply. Arthur watched this exchange, something shifting in his expression. His daughter, who hadn't let him near her in weeks, was now clinging to Daniel's hand. Lily had climbed onto the bed, showing Vivian drawings she'd brought. "How?" Arthur asked quietly. "How does she trust you when she won't even look at me?" Daniel met his eyes. "Because I learned her language. Not just the signs, her actual language, the one where she gets to be herself." Vivian signed something, and Daniel hesitated before translating. She says, "Tell him I've been trying to teach him for 28 years, but he never wanted to learn." Arthur's composure finally cracked. He sank into a chair, looking every one of his 62 years. "I don't know how," he admitted. "I don't know how to talk to my own daughter." Lily tugged on his expensive sleeve. "I can teach you. I learned when I was 5. It's not hard if you really want to." Arthur looked at the child, then at his daughter, then at Daniel. Would you teach me?" The question cost him everything: his pride, his authority, his carefully constructed walls. Daniel saw it all, and despite everything, felt a flicker of sympathy. He knew what it was like to lose everything. Maybe Arthur Hale was finally learning the same lesson. "Monday mornings," Daniel said quietly. 1 hour. Community center. And you come alone, no security, no lawyers. Just you." The conference room at Hale Dynamics had never seen a meeting like this. Arthur sat across from Daniel, lawyers conspicuously absent. Between them lay a file, the real records from the Skybridge project. "You were right," Arthur said heavily. "About everything. My people stole your designs. I knew it and authorized it because winning mattered more than integrity." He pushed a check across the table. "This won't undo what I did, but it's what you're owed." plus interest, plus damages. Daniel didn't touch the check. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? I want you to learn sign language. I want you to actually try to know your daughter. And I want you to understand that she's not broken, she never was. Arthur's jaw clenched. You're in love with her. It wasn't a question, but Daniel answered anyway. Yes. But I walked away because I thought it was best for her. Just like you thought controlling her was best. We were both wrong. She could have anyone. She doesn't want anyone. She wants to be seen. Do you know she graduated summa cum laude? That her thesis on Renaissance art and communication was published in 3 journals? That she volunteers teaching art to deaf children but does it anonymously because she doesn't want your name attached? Arthur stared at him. I didn't know any of that, because you never asked. You were too busy trying to fix her to see she was never broken. Daniel stood. Keep your money. Use it to build something that matters. A school for deaf children. A community center. Something that says you finally understand that different doesn't mean less than. He started to leave, then turned back. She's been discharged from the hospital. She's staying with her friend Marina. She won't come home until you learn to say one thing in sign language. I'm sorry. Arthur's hands shook as he attempted the sign for the 50th time. Daniel corrected his form again, patient despite everything between them. It had been 2 weeks since their confrontation. 2 weeks of Arthur showing up at the community center for lessons. Why are you helping me? Arthur asked during a break. I destroyed your life. Because Vivian loves you, despite everything. And I love her. That means helping her have the father she deserves, even if you don't deserve her. Arthur was quiet for a moment. I've spent her whole life trying to make her normal. I never realized I was the one who needed to change. Sign it. Don't say it, Daniel instructed. She needs to see you mean it. Arthur tried again, and this time, the sign was perfect. I'm sorry. The community center felt different in the evening light. Daniel arrived early, his heart pounding. Vivian's text had been simple. Can we talk? Our usual room. 7 p.m. She was already there, silhouetted against the window. When she turned, her signs were slow, deliberate. I've missed you. I've missed you too, Daniel signed back, maintaining distance, though every cell in his body wanted to close it. My father told me what he did. The settlement. The apology. He's learning sign language. I know. I've been teaching him. Vivian's eyes widened. You? Why? Daniel moved closer, his signs careful, considered. Because love isn't just about holding on. Sometimes it's about helping someone heal, even if it means helping them reunite with someone who hurt you. You love me? Her signs were barely visible, trembling. I've loved you since you stood up to your father. Since you brought homemade cookies just to make Lily smile. Since you chose to be yourself, instead of who the world expected you to be. Vivian crossed the remaining distance between them. I chose you the day you saw me struggling, and didn't see a billionaire's daughter or a deaf woman. You saw someone who needed help and helped without question. You're Arthur Hale's daughter. No, she signed firmly. I'm Vivian, just Vivian. The woman who loves your daughter. The woman who loves you. Daniel's resolve finally shattered. He pulled her into his arms, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. No words needed. When they finally pulled apart, Vivian signed, I fought for this. For us. I won't let you push me away again. What about your father? Your world. You are my world. You and Lily. Everything else is just noise and I'm deaf, remember? I get to choose which voices matter. Daniel laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Lily's going to be insufferable. She's been planning our wedding in her drawings. Smart girl, Vivian signed, smiling. She knows what we took so long to figure out. Some people are meant to find each other. Even if the path is complicated. Especially if it's complicated, Daniel corrected, his hands sure now. The easy roads don't lead anywhere worth going. They stood together in the fading light. Two souls who'd found their way through silence to something deeper than words. Tomorrow would bring challenges, Arthur's continued lessons, society's judgment, the vast gulf between their worlds. But tonight, in this simple room where Daniel had taught Vivian to sign I deserve to be heard, they signed something new to each other. Welcome home. Daniel took her hand, signing with the other. Come home with us tonight. Lily's been saving your chair at dinner. What about the neighbors? The questions? Let them question. I'm done hiding from life. Because I'm afraid of getting hurt again. Sarah wouldn't want that. Lily doesn't want that. And I don't want that anymore. Vivian pulled him close again, and this time when they kissed, it tasted like promise, like future, Like everything they'd both been afraid to hope for, the garden behind the community center had been transformed. White roses climbed makeshift trellises, fairy lights twinkled in the dusk, and mismatched chairs from a dozen donations created an aisle. It wasn't the Plaza Hotel or any of the venues Arthur had suggested, but it was perfect. Daniel stood at the altar, really just a painted arch. Lily had decorated wearing his only suit. His hands were steady as he watched Vivian walk toward him, Marina at her side as maid of honor. Vivian wore her mother's wedding dress, pulled from storage, altered by a local seamstress who'd refused payment after hearing their story. The dress was simple, elegant, nothing like the designer gowns in her closet. But she'd never felt more beautiful. The guests were an eclectic mix, construction workers from Daniel's jobs, children from Vivian's secret art classes, nurses from the hospital who'd witnessed their reunion, and in the front row, Arthur Hale, his hands folded, ready to sign his blessing. He'd spent 3 months learning sign language, and while he still stumbled, he could now have real conversations with his daughter. "You are my world. You and Lily. Everything else is just noise and I'm deaf, remember? I get to choose which voices matter." "Daniel," she signed, her movements fluid and sure. "You taught me that love isn't about words, it's about understanding. You saw me when I was invisible. You heard me when I was silent. You gave me a voice when the world told me I had none. I promise to see you, hear you, and stand with you. Not in spite of our differences, but because of everything they've taught us." Daniel's eyes glistened as he signed his response. "Vivian, you showed me that broken doesn't mean worthless. That starting over isn't failure. It's courage. You brought light back into our lives when I thought darkness was all we deserved. I promise to love you in sound and in silence, in plenty and in want, in every language we learned together." The officiant, a deaf pastor from Marina's church, began signing the ceremony. When it came time for vows, Vivian went first. The laughter that rippled through the gathering needed no translation. When the pastor signed, "You may kiss," the garden erupted in a celebration that was both silent and deafening, hands waving in deaf applause, voices cheering, Lily throwing flower petals she'd saved for this moment. At the reception potluck style in the community center, Arthur approached the newlyweds. His signs were still clumsy but clear. "I'm proud of you, Vivian. Both of you." Lily bounced between them, holding the rings on a pillow she'd decorated with painted butterflies. As they exchanged bands, she signed to the crowd. "They're finally getting married. I told Daddy months ago this would happen. Thank you." Daniel signed back, "For giving me a future." Arthur pulled an envelope from his pocket, handing it to Daniel. "The deed to the community center. It's yours now, both of yours, to run programs for deaf children, for families who need to learn to communicate. The Skybridge money built it. But you two will make it matter." Daniel stared at the papers, then at Arthur. "Why?" Arthur's signs were careful but heartfelt. "Because my daughter taught me that building bridges between people matters more than building them between buildings." As the evening wound down, they found themselves on the roof of the community center, their community center now the city sparkling below. Lily was asleep in Arthur's arms, a sight Daniel never thought he'd see. Vivian hugged her father for the first time in years. Over his shoulder, she signed to Daniel, "Thank you for giving me my father back." Daniel stared at the papers, then at Arthur. "Why? No honeymoon in Paris?" Vivian signed, teasing. They stood together, watching the city sleep. Two souls who'd learned that the most profound love stories aren't about grand gestures or perfect circumstances. They're about two people choosing to learn each other's language, one sign at a time, until understanding becomes love, and love becomes home. In the distance, the Skybridge gleamed in the moonlight, Daniel's design finally built, finally recognized, but it paled in comparison to the bridge he and Vivian had built between their worlds. A bridge made not of steel and concrete, but of patience, understanding, and the courage to see beyond the surface to the heart beneath. Daniel stared at the papers, then at Arthur. "Why? Not yet, sweetheart," Vivian signed back. "But when it comes, we'll be ready for it. Together."